Okay. That sounds not too bad. Bit background noise. Filters. That's weird. You can hear my mouse clicks. Hi, Stone Eagle. Normally that's a little better. Hold on. Oh, we'll go with that. How's it going? How are you today? For some reason, the noise gates are not working at all. I can hear a lot of clicks and breathing and all the fun stuff. And it says that all the noise gates are on. So that's not good. I can, yeah, that's fine. As everyone switched so formal in the software category, you may drop the eagle. Okay, Stony. Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. So yesterday, hey, important guy. Yesterday um, I took the day off work. I had a doctor's appointment, so I didn't stream yesterday. And I actually took the chance to play with some new stuff. So I'm kind of refreshed a little bit. I'm back onto Liquid Sky. Um, yeah, it's fine. Yeah. Um, it's a stressful day. So nothing bad. So today I'm going to return to Liquid Sky. What I want to focus on, I think, right this second, is initiatives. I want to start getting the idea of initiatives present, if not, not fully worked out. So the concept is that a planning item is great, but an initiative is a consolidation of planning items. Not a consolidation, a group of planning items as such, right? Because you want to plan an initiative, and the planning items themselves have work attached to them. Because again, the entire focus of this project is to cascade down those things, gather the requirements, gather all this stuff without making it actual work, and then pass on the actual work to be done to developers and keep them separate. Um, the focus again being on um, trying to disconnect the developers from the management process as much as possible so that they don't get involved in these pieces. These pieces can be planned, and the product teams can be encouraged to gather requirements and build initiatives and then see progress on initiatives without constant interruption of the developers or expecting developers to track them for them, which is a common problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build out this initiatives concept. I think I've got some PRs to do first though. Or do I? Liquid Sky none. Liquid Sky client ng. So I know I've merged everything. Okay, so we're good. Um, Liquid Sky is broken up into many components at this point. The client is its own project. The backend is its own project. The documentation is its own project. The core libraries is its own, and control tower is its own. The backend pieces. Which reminds me, I got to open the actual. Got to open the thing, right? Got to have the diagram. Kind of a fundamental thing on my stream. So initiatives are going to live in planning. There's no doubt about that. It's a planning concept. The idea being that when we go to, he says with confidence, when we go to this screen, initiatives here, we'll be able to see the list of initiatives, the planning items that are contained within them. So, yeah. So what we're going to focus on today is getting the create, putting the dialogue in the screen if we can get to that point, and getting the actual initiative screen up and running. That being said, that's a little easier said than done. So let me go check tasks. I don't think I've tasked anything out for this yet. I don't believe. Plan for next release, image uploader. So this is just kind of, you know, it's clearly not being respected as start as a sprint. Nice, important guy. But ultimately, this is kind of the backlog of work that we're going to get done. So, you know, once we're at a good point, this will become actually focus on getting this empty, and then when we're happy that that's a good release, we'll do all the updates and going to start that part. So let's go and task out this piece. Now, nice, almost done. Beta one. No, no. But so Liquid Sky software, if you are a subscriber to the stream, you are more than welcome to go and check this out. This is actually hosted on a little box in my house. Um, Part of Flare Tunnel, right? You can sign up, but unless you're a subscriber, I won't activate the account, right? So there's no account activation by default. So I'm kind of making that a subscriber benefit right now. But anyway, the idea is to get a next release ready with a lot of the extra pieces and see if I can get more people to test it, see if they can, you know, if they give some feedback. Now, I think because it's so light so far, the people that have had a look, you know, really don't want to invest any time in using it. So I'm thinking that initiatives plus a few of the extra features will make it actually useful for potentially teams, which is ultimately what it's aimed at, right? It's not aimed at solo devs. It's aimed at teams. Anyway, if I was building a solo dev tool, I'd focus on this piece, right? I'd focus just on this. Like, okay, the tasks, this piece alone could, you know, it could essentially be Trello, right? But I don't want to deal with that. I want to deal with this piece. So let's go and do this. uh, okay, so we're going to add some tasks. So the challenge with doing something, the challenge with doing this is the fact that there's many moving parts is great from one perspective, in that it does allow me to have independent data here. I can put the independent data here. I can store this information. I can then produce that information and store it here and view it and speed up the query, etc. But the problem becomes when you start to plan these things out, there's many little pieces. and tasking it does become a little bit involved. So to get a screen or a button on a screen that allows me to do something, I need to create the API, I need to create the handler to deal with it there, to store it there. So I need to create the SQL context here. And then I need to create an integration event that will publish that information. I need to consume the integration event, so I need to hook up receivers here, store that information, and then add it to the GraphQL. I then need to update the query on this side. So there's lots of little pieces to get it working. Now, it can be done in a couple of hours. There's no um uh sorry, that's some horrendous heartburn right this second. It can be done in a couple of hours. It's not going to take weeks to do. So um it's not the um amount of work that's necessarily the problem. It's the fact that there's one, two, um three different GitHubs repositories. So you need to make PRs against all three. Um And how do you break these tasks down? Well, they can be broken up into functionality in terms of I could have someone in theory when when this is a big company and we're considering it that way. Um, you could have someone working on the client, someone building out the planning, someone building out the view at the same time. All three of these things could be built independently without any problems. Because you can mock the data on this side, you can send to the API, right? It doesn't have to exist right now. You can build out the API request based upon a conversation with this person. Right, so three separate people could work on this. These two people working on this only need to agree on the one message, the event that's going to get published on the integration. But tasking it out as a solo developer, it seems a little long-winded, and I end up doing everything on one branch because it's just cleaner, right? Because this lives on one repo, this and this live on the same repo. So I don't think of these as separate PRs because it's just a complete mess to do it, right? So let's try and do it that way. So we need to update, introduce initiative to planning. This is create initiatives table with cloning yourself. Imagine how much you could do if you could clone yourself. Create initiatives table. So again, all this is in respect to one requirement here. And this is my problem with the way that things like Jira go is if we don't have technical stories, a lot of what I'm about to write is kind of in the head of the developer thinking about it based upon the requirement laid out. Right. If so, yes, you can go and task stuff out, but again, the more technical tasks that are sat there inside of Jira, the more difficult it is to understand what's going on. The idea here is that you will be discussing this with the team, agreeing upon what's needed to be done, deciding on how granular you want to go in this design piece, but it will attach to the requirement, so it will tie back up to what is the requirement. And this requirement can be developed independently of the tasks. Yeah. So we're going to create an initiatives table with title, um, name, expected start, expected end. Morning, daughter. How you doing? Um, again, these are not deadlines. These are the idea of these are to try and guide the visuals. So if the product team have said, "Hey, we expect to do this in this 3 month period," then they're going to put an end and a start and end of a 3 month period. on the initiative. It's not to make the developers think there's a deadline. It's to say, hey, we want to be able to do this in this timeline, and that timeline is going to shift, right? So it's more some dates and times to kind of give them indicators that things are off track, or um, you've got this initiative, but it's kind of at risk right now because based upon past experience, past performance, we're currently expecting that. Um, um, sorry. Um, yeah, based on past performance, we're expecting that we will not hit the start date, or we will not complete within this, based upon the amount of work that's been laid out. So it's kind of laying out some expectations, but not deadlines. I've heard 6 weeks getting thrown around for increments, also that are larger than a single sprint. So we operate a kind of cycle where there's a bunch of sprints, and large features should be planned in that bunch of sprints. But deliverables can be put out in between sprints if need be. Um, Similar to the 6 week thing where we have 3 sprints and then planning and whatnot either side. Yeah. There's a few variations. So you sprint, um, um, you sprint, you can demo in between, and also there's a goal of getting a feature done within the cycle. So I think someone finally realized that 2 weeks sprints aren't always going to fit all the work in. Is it really what an epic timeline should be? Depends on what you really consider an epic. Um, I don't. I think the more we try and constrain ourselves to time, the more we are likely to rush and try and do things. Whereas we need to kind of, like here, expected start and end is to try and give an estimation of like a window of we'd like to do it in here, but then be able to tell the development the product team, hey, we don't, based upon what we've estimated the work to be, we don't feel it'll fit, so that the right decisions can be made ahead of time to trim the result, or to trim um the feature set down, or to shift other pieces of work out to other initiatives, etc. At least in sprints, I prefer not to have my stories be 1 day or 30 days. There's definitely a boundary on both sides. I mean, yeah, stories being relatively small are helpful. Um, Kind of discussing it here, right? Where the breakdown of this story, or these tasks for this requirement, are very much dependent upon who's doing them. And in the real world, 3 different developers could be working on this piece, this one requirement. But because I'm working as a solo developer, it changes the way I'm going to task it. Right. Like this initiative concept is going to take me about a day to put in, like a full 7 hours to fully put in, but it will be done in the form laid out so far based upon this terrible product manager. Um, but yeah. So the idea is this task is going to get right. The task is going to get sized. Many tasks will will roll up into a requirement. The requirement will indicate, hey, we expect this is, if I point it, then this is 15 points. If it's 6 points or whatever. Um, if we size it on time, it'll say, okay, we estimate this is around 12 hours. That's the goal of this project, is to allow both or none, right? no estimates, just get the work done and break it up and see if progress done, and then use the start and ultimately track the start and end date of a task, and use that to give estimations based upon past performance, um, number of tasks done. Obviously, not estimating will create a less accurate uh, um, a less accurate estimate. Create endpoint for new initiative. Create handler. Um, if start is after end. Um, validation. Um, title and, well, no, not title. It's a name. I think we decided a name is the initiative. Do initiatives necessarily involve two or more devs just because they're bigger? Is my reasoning. Likelihood, yeah. Initiatives, if you're going to use something like roll up into an initiative, the likelihood is, yeah, it's going to be big enough for multiple devs. I mean, what matters more is the clear gathering of requirements, right? Thank you for the follow, by the way. That's quite the name. Um, gathering requirements, being clear about what is expected, having, which brings up collaboration questions. Yeah, having solid discussions with people who understand the domain they're working in and are able to ask questions safely without, you know, being disregarded. That's what matters more. So whether it works out that an initiative is assigned to one developer or two developers, whatever. I mean, ideally you don't want silos. So an entire initiative being attached to one developer would suggest you are creating silos. So there's kind of a smell there, right? But it might happen that way, right? If the development team are like, okay, well, this person can handle that because they've got enough capacity right now. Yeah. Um, um, yeah. Publish integration event, and that would be um, identifier name, expected start end. That's all it really publishes. Yeah. No, we don't need to have. Right. That's enough to introduce that piece. Um, update UI to support adding initiatives. So a story should have value. Is a difficult one if there is an expected output. So one of the things I'm trying to question myself as I go through these processes and think about, what I've done in the past and how I've handled these things is, can I validate these? Well, that past story, no, I can't. I can create an API endpoint and I can validate this data in the database and that a message went to Kafka, but I can't visually manage those pieces until the UI comes along. And that's why I'm saying this is what they see. This is what's validated, right? But there's multiple tasks that go into that will take a few days to do. Um, they could be worked on in tests. We could talk about integration tests and stuff and get those pieces done. Like you could validate, oh, when I create this, it appears in the database, right? Your QA could work with the dev to do that. You could set up the framework. Um, But ultimately, if you don't have the capacity for that, then this is the first time you can see it, and that's when there's a screen and there's a endpoint and there's yeah. In my experience, large projects handed off to a single dev take way longer than anyone wants them to. You're not wrong. I agree. Um, Normally, that is because a large project has been kind of thought through thinly and handed off, and then the expectation is that that dev is going to become more more of a domain expert as they go, and then kind of pick up. Oh, we need to do this now. Oh, we can't do this because this. So it's not very well thought out. Um, yeah, it does. If you're doing it that way, if you're trying to plan, and again, the entire purpose of this tool is to try and make sure that that doesn't happen in that way, so that the planning and requirements are laid down a little bit more clearly, and that the changes to that over time are also reported on and visualized, so that you can see, oh well, this planning item, we planned it in October last year. It didn't get started until February of this year, and we added a bunch of requirements at the last minute, and it blew the scope out, right? Or things were the development was going along, but we kept adding tasks to the requirements. So why? Well, we didn't really go through and dig through the requirements, and we kind of left them till late. So you can kind of see that imbalance and that pain. That's again a goal to let people visualize their actual pain of the process. Um, if you're doing large projects to single dev, single dev has no sounding board. A single dev has no validation. They might be an expert in the system, um, but they're not likely to write a lot of things down. They're not likely to, because if a solo dev is championing a large project, they like likely can make that validation of, oh, I can't do unit tests, it slows me down. I'll just get the work done. I mean, I'm generalizing there probably unfairly, but it's a thing. It's a thing. That's the key. I think you can visualize how long your time to market actually is. Right. Which is why I'm putting, you know, a lot of thought and effort into figuring out how to do that kind of metrics side of things, where the system is kind of indicating to you, oh, by the way, based upon your past performance, or based upon the fact that we've added 15 tasks to this requirement that you expect to be done by the end of the month, not likely right this second. Um, Especially if the average burn down of a developer's task is 3 hours, then we had 15 tasks. Then let's average that out and say, yeah. So a lot of metrics, a lot of data to come. It can all be added. It's not like I'm doing it now. I'm not trying to pre-plan that idea, but it is a lot of things I'm thinking about in terms of visibility. Yeah, well, what I want to be able to say, hey, this initiative was planned in October. We had eight planning items. The planning items yielded an average of 15 requirements or whatever, which yielded 20 tasks total or something like that. Right. Here's what it looked like as a view. It was delivered in here. So your total time from planning to delivery was 4 months, say. Right. Now we've got some historical data there to use when we're planning other initiatives, and you're saying, well, even if we don't estimate, like point estimate, or we don't time estimate, based upon the average start to end time of a task, here's what we expect, right? So, and per developer or per team or per group, right? Yeah. Um, so there's a lot of potential here for doing that sort of stuff, where and the goal is to very much get on those requirements, those ideas. Create button in initiatives. Yeah, my thoughts with retro is for people to realize how long it takes to take idea to concrete thing. Well, my hope is that over time, what you would see is they'd see the difference between an ill thought out requirements and a well thought out requirement, right? So they'd be able to say, okay, well, this initiative we started in October, we just jammed a bunch of planning items in there in a 2 week period. The developers got it a week before they was due to start development, and our we added a lot of tasks on the back end, but we delivered it, a month past when we actually wanted to. This other initiative, we planned 2 months ahead of when we expected to start it. We got a lot of requirements and stuff developed and thought out before it started. Once it started, we had no tasks added, we had no requirements added, and we delivered it 2 weeks before, right? So allowing teams to visualize the actual um, um, cost of poor planning and last minute ideas. And you've got to embrace some of the agility, right? We like the agile practices aren't just about um, rapid change, though. They do revolve around good planning and requirements gathering so that you understand the cost of moving thing from A to B, and you can make that decision. Planning items are kind of adding more waterfall, for lack of a better word, into the process. How so? Planning item could be a planning item on its own. It could be standalone. It doesn't have to be part of an initiative. I'm not sure. Sorry, I'm not sure that it's adding more. I'm not sure about waterfall. 1 second, I need to close this door behind me. It's getting very cold. Sorry. Well, your ideal scenario was everything's planned out. There's no extra tasks, and it goes as expected in the time frame you thought. Right. Which to me is the opposite of we'll just start it, see what happens, and stop when there's no more value left. Maybe I'm not following. The latter would be more agile. Well, again, agile is not about total punting, though. Agile is about being able to respond to changes and understand the ability to move. And you can only do that if you know what it's costing you to move. You do have to do some planning. You can't just say, like, that's why people fall into waterfall when they say they're being agile, is because they're like, well, we can change our mind on a whim. No, no. Agile doesn't mean the lack of planning at all. Like, just in time requirements, right? Is a similar thing, right? Where we're saying, okay, well, let's not worry about. I get the whole you don't know what it's going to be, right? And this still supports that in terms of you can put an initiative in place, right? Because there is an initiative. Someone has an idea to put something in. You can put a bunch of planning items in place for those things that you do know you want and set requirements. Nothing says you can't add a bunch of planning items into an initiative later in the cycle once you've done a feedback, right? As long as you understand what it is and how it happened and that you've got all the visibility, like you can see the benefits and the costs of those things. So you can still make the workflow work however you want. It's not like I'm saying that it's bad to add requirements because you discover more, right? Or planning items specifically, right? Let's say you start an initiative and um, you add 5 planning items because you feel that you need X, Y, and Z features. You add the requirements in there. Developers come along, they develop 2 out of those 5, and you realize after development of the second one that the third, fourth, and fifth are kind of useless. So you go and archive them and you create some more planning items, but you can see them evolving. The initiative will still tell the story. Um, so how you use it, I'm not going to prevent you from removing, or I'm not going to say when you start an initiative you can't add more requirements or planning items. What I'm going to do is indicate to people that things are changing, that a planning item was removed, or that a task was added, or that a requirement was changed, or a requirement was removed or added, right? Supported from day one, right? Requirements being deleted. The ability to adapt the system and to change it is just as much just as important as being able to try and get the planning. The idea here, though, is to try and get people who have ideas to put the ideas into a way that we can understand them and follow them and work off of them, rather than working on a whim or someone's interpretation at any one point. Find out 5 things you'd like, implement 2 of them, realize the other 3 aren't helpful, but learn you should do 2 extra. Yeah, yeah. And it can still support that, but the story later will tell you, okay, well, this initiative we nailed. We know we nailed it. The requirements hit perfectly. What did we do? Well, we weren't afraid to remove some planning items. We didn't go all in and just say, well, that's the way. And that's where agile is, right? Agile is we do things, we review things, we change things when we need to, but you still need planning. You can't just go and say, I want the button there. I want the button there. No, 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 no. I want the button there. That's not healthy, right? You still need to do some sort of planning. You still need to make sure that people are aware of what the vision is. And that's what this is all about, right? It's not this is not the work, and that's deliberate. I don't want this to be the work. I want this to be the vision sharing component. And if the vision changes, the vision changes, but it should still be current and up to date enough that you can see um, where things lie. I'm going to misspell it a bunch of times. Um, I don't know how to capture learn. You should do 2 extras effectively. I mean, it's accepting that your initial plans for the thing, your initial vision has evolved, right? It's saying, well, hold on, we started with 5 planning items. Once we hit the second one, once we started working on the second one, the requirements started to show. Those other 3 aren't as helpful as I thought they were. And I've actually done it a few times on this. I've removed things because they just don't fit what I expect anymore. It could be a requirement or it could be a planning item, right? It doesn't matter which level. Um, but not being afraid to change them and add different requirements. Now, requirements changes are different because they have tasks attached to them, right? So if you've got a bunch of tasks attached and you say, oh, I want to remove this requirement, that should come with extra cost because you basically want to say, well, we've spent a bunch of time on this. We should see it, but yeah. Well, I mean, you should do, right? That's the purpose, right? You don't want to say, you know, we said it would do this, therefore we are going to do this. I used the term yesterday, right? It's the same term we were discussing yesterday. Um, um, A11, why is it so much work to get all tabbing and highlighting right? Target focus. Um, where you can't. It's in Top Gun. They mention it where basically you get the target and then you can't focus on anything else, right? That's damaging to a process because it means you're just going to continue to follow through no matter what the cost, and then regret it later. Um, it's so much work. I just spent like 5 hours on it. It's yeah, it's an important piece, but one that that sort of stuff is stuff that doesn't get noticed by most people, but the people that do notice it will appreciate it. Oh, that's cool. Completely blocks tab focus on all children. It's nice. Did you give a link there or did you swear? It won't allow you to link links and thank you to spam and yeah, it won't let you link. It's useful though if you PM me it. No, swearing will just get a harsh warning and a inner equals not open. Gotcha. Yeah, inert property. There you go. Nice. Thanks for sharing that. Wide compatibility. Not ignored in Safari, but ignored in everything else. Yeah. Um, like that. Rests. Uh, fields. Ah. We'll improve some of these things soon. Ready for planning, actually. Uh, create. Description outcome. That's a very bad name. Create dialogue. Capture. Name. Expected. Start. End. Validate. Start. Before end. So yes, I put validation in the other side. Gonna cut some eggs before work. Doa, enjoy your breakfast. Thank you very much for coming, hanging out, and having the chat as always. Look forward to getting some of these things in place, and you can maybe give these a good test and see how you feel about them. Um, Someone who needs this level of I'll have an updated browser. Yeah, 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 yeah. Be cool to see, my friend. Yeah, makes sense. But it start before end. Um, Name set. So yeah, I'm going to put validation on the client, but because the server is not linked to the client, right? It's just a backend that accepts requests. The validation should still happen there as well, right? It's just a secondary check. So very nice with drop down menus of all forms from the tabbing perspective. Huh. Um, this is another one actually. This brings up another issue. So I've got a task. I've created the UI, right? We have one more task to create there actually. Consume. Actually, two more tasks. Consume um, initiative integration event. Um, if you have a sidebar with groups and you have sections collapsed, it will not target the hidden links. Ah, so you don't end up with a where's my tab gone, and then all of a sudden the tab comes back because you're not tabbing through the collapsed pieces. Oh, nice. It's far too much UI. This is so this is the current version. The new version looks a little better, but I don't think is actually as friendly. I think the new version, now I look at it, is a bit too busy, but I'm not sure how to lay it out, which is why I said yesterday, like I need to I need to find someone who can dedicate some serious time. This is not a few screens either. This is an entire uh, chunk of work at this point, um, to build out. But it's going to be quite a lot of stuff to do from a visual perspective. So I half expect to rebuild this. I do have coming up soon, I hope, Ixokamil, who's a an Angular expert, um, um, also streams. Uh, I have been talking to him, and I'm going to continue the conversations and see if we can't figure out a stream or two, to help have him go through my Angular a little bit and give some criticisms, give some hints and pointers, and maybe set me on a better path for building better client side code, um, with signal stores and just general design because it just feels rough. I've hated doing front end for the longest time. Been doing it so much because I'm the only one actually working on the UI that ended up somewhat loving it. I When I get to work with someone who knows what they're doing from a design perspective, and it's just building it out, I love that because the feeling of a decent UI, it just looks professional. It's really rewarding when you just start slapping things on the screen and you're trying to design this yourself. It's frustrating because it doesn't look good. Even if the features are there, it doesn't really represent your idea in the best possible way. So I don't enjoy the front end. I much prefer back end coding. It's just so much more rewarding for me overall. But yeah, it is the world we live in where we have to do a little bit of everything. But I still believe that full stack is a myth. Um, also, how you doing? I am not a designer by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah, since I started to work together with a streamer, AAOA, I didn't have to think about how to make things look good. Yeah. I looked at AAOA, but the amount of work that I actually would be asking for, I looked at his pricing. I could not afford. I could not afford that, and it's a lot of work to do. I have been talking to another streamer, but I think that that plan has fallen by the wayside. You like retro games playthrough? Not even retro. You play modern games as well, don't you, Mister Destroyer? Um, Retro games, speedruns, Pokemon. What have you been playing? You've been playing Yakuza games. The Roth is well worth going hanging out with. I've been blessed with very much luck 3 years ago. Yeah, yeah. It's Yeah, this application is getting to the point where I really do need to consider finding someone who's got a lot of spare time. Consume initiative integration event in Vue. So again, the problem with these requirements, right? Right. Let me do this. You should store the initiative and uh, let's just go with that for right now. I know what it means. So another requirement here, right? So create from dashboard. When I navigate to the initiative dashboard, I should see a create button as with the planning items. Great. I create one. I don't see anything, right? So is displaying the list, and this is oftentimes one of the problems we come up with, right? People put planning items or stories in Jira for create initiative. Great. Developers don't ask a question. They just go ahead and do what's asked of in the actual story. How do you prove to the QA or to the PM themselves that you did anything? Right? It's kind of like a unit test, right? You start with a unit test that fails. You then make one that passes. Is anyone checking that you didn't just do assert true? Um, um, this UI looks like it's made by a backend dev, but it looks like it's been made by a good backend dev. It's really not bad. Thank you. I appreciate the compliment there. Yeah. The newer version, I think, looks a little nicer. We did some work with UI, AI, UI. We did some work with AI with Claude to get some guidance, and it did help us with some colors and stuff. So the screen looks a little cleaner. But yeah, there's a lot still to go. Yeah, all that started. That's fine. Um, and there's a lot more data to collect and stuff as well over time. So anyway, my point is your your PM makes a story, create initiative. Great, awesome. We've asked them to maybe create this story. What they haven't considered is how do they validate it, right? So like the unit test, if I just do assert true on that failing test, it passes. Great, I've got a green test. Awesome, move on. I can fake it. Nothing says I actually have to do anything until someone asks me to do a list, right? Now, obviously, I'm tasking this out, but in Jira, I wouldn't always task that out. Tasks make the screen look horrendous. You have to track them all independently, right? They don't drag the story along, all those sorts of fun things. So PM comes and says, "Well, I can't see anything, right? Um, should see a list of initiatives. When an initiative is added, I expect to see a list." Now, um, on the screen, um, with name, start, and end expected. I would add a slight highlight of darting on the even rows in the table. Yeah, the new version's a little different to this. Let me share what the new version looks like. I think it works well, but it's a developer UI, and I still think it suffers. I think it now suffers from usability issues, whereas previously it was fine. Really, really, that just doesn't run the first time. Dot dot services up console. Right, there we go. That will run. So the new version, I think, is a little cleaner. It's more colorful, which means it's a little easier to represent some of the ideas. But I think it suffers from a too far in the opposite direction problem of now it's too unusable because there's just too much going on. Um, this is kind of Jira style where everything's down the right hand side. So you end up with, okay, I click over here, everything's down the right hand side. Um, and then, but now these tasks, if I task these out, where do I put the tasks? Where do they show? How do I keep going vertical and keep scrolling? That's a mess. And by the way, there's no mobile consideration for this at all yet. So I think that's actually a completely different view um, in my mind so far. It can't be more colorful than my app. Like colorful is, I didn't really notice um, how much I I was lacking color until I actually implemented this newer design. Um, so it suffers in a different direction. I'll show you in a second. But again, things like theming, things like this entirely, they are their own focus. They're their own. You need a lot of energy just to pick these up and run with them because there's just so much more to deal with. Okay, let's go. Uh, localhost 4200. So sign in. Come on. Things get confused when I end up. Should log me in again. There we go. There we go. Okay, so we go here. There we go. Okay, it is set to every user. Um, you say you don't have an AOA budget. I don't know how big your budget is, but I have someone who's really good in his AOA, his protege. Um, this project is not making me money. It is a side project that I'm doing to try and grow some of my skill set. So, can I afford some money? Yes. Can I afford a lot of money? No. Not interested. So, but I would finding the right person. But there's a lot to do, right? There's a lot of design. So anyway, this is the new version of that screen, right? So you can see immediately there's a lot more color on the screen. It's a little darker overall, but there's a lot more color. We have the row highlighting going on. Uh, so we can expand a planning item. It loads the planning item now. So now the details. Now, what I call the description here, I actually changed my mind on what this should be. This is the goal. The description matters nothing, right? This is the goal of the planning item, right? This is the goal. The requirements lay out the story, right? Because what I found myself doing is actually trying to write a lot of stuff in here that would be in there, right? The reasons why. Planning items is independent things useful to track work, but as a product owner, this is the initiative. But as a product owner, it's useful to see how all the planning items wrap together. Initiative will carry with it more eventually, but the immediate need is to be able to group planning items to begin representing the concept. So the goal here is to create the initiative concept and lay down the groundwork for the future, right? The requirement specifies that, and the requirement will come with the why, right? That's the goal, right? Then you need to become Solux a lot. Yeah, yeah, yeah. If I go to try and spend several $1,000s on getting a full UI UX overlay, overwork done on all this, it's going to upset the marriage balance a little bit. Um, so anyway, the requirements now, you expand a requirement, you can add a task. The task now has an assign to, which is a new feature in the latest version. But the idea is the tasks will list down here. Attachments, comments don't look exactly how I want them to do. And I'm actually thinking that comments aren't really comments. They are the discussion. I'm really considering this as discussions. Yeah, and meetings. What I want to do is hook into calendars and stuff, and then basically be able to track the meetings that have happened or are going to happen against the planning item. So that if someone comes in and sees, oh, there's a meeting scheduled for tomorrow on this planning item, then they can actually say, hey, can I attend this meeting, please? I have some ideas or whatever. Editing the requirements, so you see the goal, and then the changes and stuff, the highlights, whatever is going to go here, right? So this is the current version. It's a little bit more colorful, a little bit clearer, but it suffers from a bit too busy, right? I think there's a lot more use of space. However, that space comes at a cost of, you know, yeah. You can create new planning item. This is now a dialogue rather than a slide over or whatever it's called. No, we've this is because the default theme changed, and then I had some overrides in places, so it's just a case of going through and setting that up. But you can also filter now, ways you couldn't do previously. There's a few newer features in here that make this a little smoother to use. I also got rid of the grouping concept, so in this, I kind of grouped it by past due, current, upcoming. In this version, we'll highlight, oh, by the way, this review date is passed. And a review date, again, is a tracking value for the person who's doing the planning to, this view initially will be the person themselves rather than everybody. So it'll be what's assigned to you. But yeah, this was an update to Prime NG hitting at the same time as pulling in some extra pieces. So a full theming is possible. But yeah. Um, yeah, the goal, I'm not sure how that should lay out, but ultimately it should be the goal. Filters. Tasks. Tasks hasn't changed very much. Um, some slight differences. Now you can see who's assigned. You can see the details of it. You can go and edit it, assign it, go back, right? So there's yeah, some differences. This requirement is there so that you know why you're doing this task. Is Angular supported by Microsoft in C Sharp, or do you need to set it up yourself? Um, you mean in terms of the host, like when you start up, you can hit F5 and have it run from there? Is that what you mean? Ojo, good morning. How you doing? You know, I expected to at least get some development done today, and I've actually not got development done. I've just been talking, so I do apologize on that. Um, yeah, it still works the same way. You can do that, but the templates are so far behind. I scrapped that pretty early on, so now I just run Angular independently. So this project is completely independent of the backend project, right? Um, the front end is completely. Ojo's working on getting a channel ban timed out. I don't know. You should go learn. So yeah. Um, yeah, I scrapped it. I actually had it originally. It was hosted, yeah, but their template was so bad because it was like a version or two behind of Angular. So you end up deleting the client app, rebuilding a new app, and dropping it in there so that just so you've got the Microsoft wrapping pieces. But all it is so that Microsoft, that like Rider can start it as a project like everything else. Whereas if you drop it in WebStorm, I just run it using npm the normal way, so it starts up and it runs and it does all the build and stuff, and I don't have to mess around with any extras. And this is the way it's deployed, right? This is actually deployed to a little Kubernetes cluster, Kubernetes box, not a cluster. Cluster suggests I've got more than one right now. But yeah, this is just wrapped. It's just on a Kubernetes box with all database and everything right this second. Okay. What are you running? So, well, that's 16 services total. So we have API gateway. So doesn't include the client because the client's running in a separate thing, right? Planning, tasks, attachments, notifications, organization management, and tenant management. These are each services, right? Notifications, communications, changes, and transform, the pipeline project. These are all running as services. Identity is its own little API. The view, and then the GraphQL piece, and also the consumer services here. So each one of these has a consumer service attached to it. So yeah, and then there's the backend, the backend. Yeah. So I recently upgraded the processor a little bit, but we're at almost 60 gig of memory usage. So we've got 128 gig of memory in the machine. We're almost at 60, and yeah, we're CPU wise, we're doing fine. EBC gamer. So yeah, it's moving. It's so I have some reflections on some of this stuff, and I have some. I'm not going to share yet because I'm still learning a little bit, but I've got some comparisons to make coming up soon. Um, I've had some eye-opening moments recently. But anyway, let's get on with this. Let's try and get some actual stuff done before we call the stream an end. How's that snow looking? No way. Awesome. So what I was saying before, and this is important, right? Because it's when you're working with Jira, when you're working with product teams, developers don't ask a lot of questions, and they should ask questions. You should be stopping and think. You don't have to design the solution when you're talking about it to a PM. You shouldn't be going down to, well, this code does this, and well, we use this queue, and we do this service, and we have this piece, and we have this piece. You shouldn't be getting to those weeds when you're talking about the product team with the product team. You should be talking about the business needs. What does the business want? How do they need things done? Why do they need things done? It's important to understand the why. So in this instance, there was no requirement for seeing something, but there's no value if you can't see it. So do we add this as a requirement? Do we just assume that the value is we can show it in the database and it's great? How does the PM approve that? Should we see a list of initiatives? Is that actually part of the create initiatives? Or is this the introduce initiatives? I am going to spell that. So Mojo, when we get to the point of doing shared PRs on Liquid Sky as well, um, you are going to have to continually check that I spell initiatives correctly. There's, there's way too many I's for me. Um, so if we call that introduce initiatives, then I love how that didn't change. Then this makes more sense. Um, and again, coming back to the goal, this is a description thing, right? This is the why. This is what we actually want to get done. So 59 yellow file changes prod. Let's go. um, so yeah, it's kind of important. So I think this is a good component to have. Should um, fetch um, maybe we can find a synonym with less eyes. I'm down. Saurus, Thesaurus, however you want to pronounce it. Let's go. Um, uh, build client. Fuck off. Um, do our query. Um, listing. Display cards. So don't forget, right now this doesn't have any planning items, right? So we go over here to tasks. Introduce initiative to planning. Ready for development. Prepare for next release. This will disappear. Create initiative from UI. Ready for development. Prepare for next release. Consume initiative integration event in view. Ready for development. Should store the initiative. You should store the initiative. No update. Bad chat. Create. So the challenge with the way I've designed this so far is the fact that it's wrong to expose the update context, which means that for every view, every record that we update, we need a view alternative. So yeah, let's do that. So that's a bit costly, and that's one of the things I would like to consider. Fetching this to client. Yeah, there you go. So now we should see them listed here. This older version worked actually a bit smoother. Huh. So let's get on with this piece. Right. Introduce initiative to planning. New branch, feature, introduce initiatives. Okay. So what we've said is we create a table with name, expected start, expected end. We create an endpoint, we create a handler. So I expect that by the end of the stream, I can get this piece done, right? Might not be super valuable, but I expect by the end of the stream I can get it done. So as a developer, throwing out 40-minute timelines is a bad mistake because I don't know whether someone's going to come in the stream and ask a question. I don't know whether I'm going to get diverted. I have no idea. I don't know what's going to come up next. So if you are new to the stream, and I haven't said this today actually because I've been very poor on this today. If you're new to the stream, you're more than welcome to ask questions. You're more than welcome to engage. Like if you want to get involved in this conversation, if you have an opinion about something I'm talking about, you think I'm completely wrong, I'm happy to talk about it as long as it's friendly and productive and we both accept that, we have a point of view. I'm okay talking about stuff. I think it's important. It's an important part of software development is to understand different people's perspectives on things because um cute bird. Um right. If you're developing on your own all the time, then you're a what's the word? You are a echo chamber. If you're working with other people, getting their opinions, getting their ideas, understanding their perspectives. Doesn't matter whether they've been doing this for 5 minutes, 5 hours, you know, 5 years, 5 decades. They have a different perspective. They have a different vision of the requirements, and it's why it's important to ask questions, but it's also important to have a conversation. So I do believe it is an integral part of the stream to continue that idea. Okay, so first we need a script. So what we do is we go over here, we go to planning items. So each one of those services has a database as well, right? So each component has its own data. There is not one database. So a new table, we'll call this init. Yeah, it's the most important place to spell it right. ID, int. I don't think we're going to get to 4 billion. I mean, if we do, that's an awesome problem to have. Not null identity, right? Make it a primary key. New column ident identifier. It's words with too many eyes. I can't. Unique identifier. I know what I've made is not something everyone can just make, but I'm YOLOing pretty much anything I'm learning as I go. And that's a perfectly great way to do it. Yeah. Ambitions or aspirations, still too many eyes. They all have eyes in them. Um, I mean, I was tinkering with something earlier on, and I was reminded of that, you know, sometimes just throwing stuff out there and trying to make things work is just as much fun from a development perspective as planning everything. And I still hold to the one thing you would need to remember is if you're going to do a prototype, let's say you're working for someone and you're asked to do a proof of concept. What you can't allow is that proof of concept to become the product, right? You have to understand that the proof of concept is a proof of concept, and that you need to build proper formal pattern design around it, right? But that proof of concept should still be written in a way that you're not scared to change it, or you're not scared to put it apart, and that you understand it later. Um, so yeah, it's be called out for which part. um, expected start date. I don't think I can use anything but a date time. SQL Server date type map to C sharp. I don't think there is a mapping. I don't think we have date. There's a date time. I know it's not a Microsoft confirmed list, but it's not null. Do we want to make these required? Should an initiative have a role of initiative? I didn't know how you doing. Like I know I've just gone through all that effort of building them out. Are these required? I don't think they are. I don't know my die. I think the only thing that's required of initiative is name, but you can set an expected start and end. But if you have an expected end, you have to have an expected start. Maybe there's a business rule in there. Like if you set one, you have to set the other, right? You can't have them both null, but they can be null. Easy. Num dice, size per die. So 2d10 would be rolling two 10-sided dice. So I'm going to say they can be null. Let's see how we feel about it. There's nothing expected. End date time. Okay. Date added. Date time. Last updated. Date time. Can be null. Can't be null. Whoa, no. They added can't be null. This can't be null. Hey, Yoga. This is entirely random. I also have someone doing their best. It's also random, but related. So we have a table. Let's script the DDL. Go to planning items. Add file. So I'm not using migrations. I do not like messing around. Hi, Mr. Jones. Hello. Sorry, I missed that. Good afternoon. He's at work. His work allows him in YouTube. It does not allow him in Twitch. So I just appreciate having the viewer on YouTube because not many people check out YouTube. It's very hard to get discovered on YouTube, which is partially why Monday Friday Project to help with that journey. This is professional development time. It's fine. Initiatives. There we go. So we have the script. One of the things I'm going to have to figure out is how to. I'm going to have to wrap everything with on the script. I'm going to have to go through and wrap everything with a create if not exists, and then run the migrations that we've got. Because there's some of these now where we've added columns, etc. Morning, one line. Thank you for shouting out Thindle. Was yesterday Thindle, was yesterday's stream a random stream? Is you getting back into it? Or were you was that a normal time? That was early, right? For me. What was early for me? Okay. I thought it wasn't. Yeah. It's super ham for us, yeah. Because I got up at what, 5 something yesterday morning and you were on? Not the usual topic either. Got some co-working stream or getting some custom work done. No, Civ 7 went on the shelf. Civ 7 went on the shelf. No Civ 7. Not right this second. I'm not getting involved in Civ 7. My brother texted me earlier on to ask how I was doing and ask why I haven't been playing Eve. And I'm like, I need to focus on some of these projects I have. Civ 7 arrived yesterday. I logged it into the game library and then put it on the shelf. As happens to a lot of games I've pre-ordered. I mean, it's either YouTube or Twitch mobile. Not sure which is the lesser of the two evils. Oof. YouTube is at least higher quality. Well, the video quality, not the content. Okay, this is why I said throwing out a 40-minute estimate was a bad idea. Okay, let's do initiative. Let's create the model, just so I don't forget the model. This is an entity base. I need to stop running now. Or base entity. Base entity. Entity base. I do know what I'm doing. So the only fields that are not on the base entity here are the name and the start date and end date. Private string name, public string name, get. No, that. Yeah, YouTube needs to improve a lot to improve to become a good streaming platform. If they want to focus on the streaming, their tools, their chat interaction, the entire thing needs. It can't just be a YouTube video with an extra panel. My favorite is LinkedIn. Expected start date, public date time, expected start date. I didn't get invited yet. Expected end date. It knows the pattern, so I'm just letting it fill it in. Right. Let's see if it does a create. There we go. Return. So var initiative equals that. Return initiative. I've been using the bird emotes in my messages for almost 3 years, and without them, it just feels boring and wrong. Yeah, I don't know. The yeah, I'm not going to put the domain event in there right this second. I'm going to try to be better at committing more frequently. Create script for initiative and corresponding entity main. In the infrastructure context, planning DB context, we now need to add initiatives. Come on, you can help me out there. There you go. Should have done that before. And then commit. It's funny. Someone else liked these emotes and got a gift sub by begging. Streamers confused him for me. Huh. Gift sub by begging. Geronimo. So you've got that person still stream because like the VODs are all like 5 years ago. Oh, oh, crazy. Okay. The attention span's going. That's the problem. Just like emotes, and since it's not a dev stream, no one uses these. Gives me a unique advantage. Gotcha. Okay, so let's do this. Concerning uh initiatives. I'm adding extra eyes now. Um when um when this is a boring one right this second when creating initiative. Let's just do this. We just want to say fact um is stored. I don't like those sorts of tests, but it's the validation that we at least call it add. Um and um initiative created main event is queued. Those are the things we want to validate. So let's do private. Um, private. This is where I have a very bad habit. See, add planning item, add requirement, planning item created. So my action is add, my event is created. Not added, created. But I sometimes flip flop between create and add as the verb to use for the initiating action. So add initiative dot, dot handler is my subject. Stick to CRUD. Yeah. Um, range act. And protected. So if you've ever seen my unit testing style before, I don't like having, so in here, I like to have, so this is going to be an I repository of initiative. It can be just called repository because we only have one. That can't be imported, that's fine. So I like to have the thing that I am asserting be the only thing in the test. Add async arg dot is initiative of that name. This is not the greatest style of test. Did I call add? I mean, essentially, I'm testing a CRUD handle here. The only thing is I want the side effect of doing the add. That an event should be queued to be processed. So repository equals substitute dot for I repository initiative subject equals, let's not be presumptive. And then this is going to be subject that handle. What I'm trying to debate with myself right now is, does having a start date or end date, have any bearing on the actual outcome? Because I can pass in nothing, I can pass in something. Let's when I had an initiative and no start or end. So let's lay down that. So this will be private read only string name. So handle, I'm going to handle a new add initiative command name null. So none. We're going to need that's going to be difficult because we're going to need to have private. This is going to be an initiative. Initiative. Of type initiative create. See, initiative created. Let's stick with that style for now. I can always. It's better that I'm consistently inconsistent in as much as when I look back, I can change all of them in one go, rather than mixing and matching too much. If I'm aware of it, at least I can change that later. Yes, I did say consistently inconsistent. Dot count. I don't like the word should in unit tests either, by the way. That's a personal thing. one of One of my key things is I realize that I'm not going to be perfect. I realize the code is not going to be 100% the same all the time. I'm going to have some moments of inconsistency. The reality is I'm not scared to go change it. I can go fix this later, right? Nothing in here is particularly worrying. So although I'm continuing on with being slightly inconsistent, I can go and change this without too much cost later. So yeah. So what we do is we go to events. Yeah. See, I did comment added. Interesting. Ah, cool. Well, not cool, but yeah. Let's do initiative created. Is an event. The main event. We'll solve that later. What's this going to have? It's a record. And it's going to have GUID identifier. It's initiative created. I don't need to do much else. And it's a domain event. we go. So now we have initiative created. Let's go and add our. Let's go and make the test build. Not pass, let's make it build. So, initiatives. Add initiative. Public record. Command. String name. Date time. Expected start date. Date time. I know that's going to come with a cost, but the API, the clarity of the API, I'm only expecting a date. We shouldn't be looking at initiatives from well, we need to start it at 8:30 on a Tuesday, right? No, we need to start it on Tuesday. That's too much to set that. So I want to make the as far as the command goes, as far as the input to the action goes, I want to be clear that it is expected to be a date. Mapping that to the database is going to be another thing. And then isn't that's interesting that it was trying to help me there. I command result period. There's our command. There's our handler. There's that. Should now have almost enough to make this build. Private read only grid source user identifier. Can't control that. Oh, that matters though. Source equals source user identifier. So that's what I'm expecting. So when I add it, I should have x dot expected start date equals null and x dot expected end date equals null. Right? Trying to be clear about what I'm getting. And that I created a domain event for initiative created. That's what I'm after. If you have questions, thoughts, or opinions on any of this, and you want to talk about it offline, you want to go through some more detail, you'd like to see how I've approached certain things in this, there is a Discord linked in the cards below. You're more than welcome to join the Discord and have a chat. We do hang out quite frequently in the Discord voice channels, where we talk about coding problems and ideas and things like that. Sometimes just hanging out while we work. Okay, so that, I mean, it'll fail, right? I know it'll fail. My expectations will not be met. Nothing will work. I should get a throw not implemented exception. Yeah. Let's go and make it pass. So to make this pass, I'm currently writing with GPU accelerated encoding support for FFmpeg. Oh, fun. Sounds challenging. Challenging in a way I would not want to be dealing with. Sorry. So let's make this pass. So we need to, yeah, I suppose you've got quite a compatibility check. Actually, the other day we were clearing out some old stuff, and I pulled that out of storage. I don't know if you can make it out. Yeah. Will it clip it at all? Yeah. So one of the first graphics cards I bought when I moved here. Um, yeah, 680, an EVGA GTX 680. Yeah, I have I have quite a collection of graphics cards. Yeah. Um, my friend has a lot of them, but I do have several several different generations of graphics cards. Actually, the most modern graphics card I have is a 7900 XTX in my gaming PC. Um, the most modern Nvidia card I own is a 2080 Super in this machine. I own two of them. Let's make this pass. So we're gonna put in our repository now. This is gonna be initiative repository. So the thing I like about designing the code this way is that these are very single responsibility. It does keep it kind of clean. I like this design a lot. Um, so we're gonna do var initiative equals initiative dot create. So you saw me remove the constructor. Actually, I need to do something. I need to do something else. Infrastructure. This needs initiative configuration, uh, entity type configuration, initiative, builder dot property p goes to p dot name as field name. So you saw me do the private variables before. Um, those are because I want to control if anyone's the reason for the static factory method and the private constructor is to basically be able to control access to these. So a developer could not come along, a developer who's not paying attention to his own design and is being wildly inconsistent, maybe, comes along and wants to change the value of something. If I just go and change the expected start date and save the object, it doesn't force me to trigger the right events. It doesn't force any of those things. So doing it this way, I'm able to force the creation. Entity Framework will still hydrate a copy of this object because it doesn't need the constructor to do that. It uses the properties and maps the object into the values, right, from the database. So it doesn't construct a new instance of the object in the normal sense. Um, so yeah, um, that's how that works. So now when I'm creating it, command dot um, name. Now this is where this is going to get interesting because I'm thinking I want to change this to be date only. However, when I map it into here, it should be date time. Can I take a date only? New date time. Does it take a date only as a constructor? It does not. Can I map it? to date time. Do you do that? Dot as value. You need. Thank you. 2 date time. No, min value. I suppose. Actually, min and max, yeah. Midnight and 23:59. Okay. So that allows me to basically say, okay, now expected command that expected start date, command that expected end date, right? And then await async. Oh wow. Recycles. Cancellation token. Always got to remember to pass your cancellation token down. Return. So create it here. I add it there. Return result dot created. Good. I need to use this more. The result pattern has a lot more to it than just okay. And what I've been doing so far is returning okay. I can return the actual status of these things, right? So if there's an error or validation, I can return a different status and get that. So I need to lean more into these and learn a little bit more about what's available to me there. You can also, this is also useful for returning paths and stuff if you're using more RESTful styles. I also need to, when I create, I should track the source user identifier. But for right this second, we're going to make this test pass and then, or we're going to make it fail again, but pass on part of the results. I don't want to see the event, obviously, but I want to see this test pass. So initiative is stored. So we do have an initiative and it does have null date and time. Awesome. So that's still functioning. Now I need to make the initiative pass. So we're going to need that source user identifier. I wish there was a way of wrapping this around the pieces, but unfortunately, I haven't found a good design yet for that piece. Okay, so source user identifier. Now we don't publish the event right now, so let's do initiative dot domain events dot add domain event. Sorry, new initiative created. Now when we run this, oh no, did I not pass that in? Yeah, I did. Main events, run unit tests. So that's an arrange problem, right? What I've not done is I've not arranged that when pository.add, is it when arg goes to r.add async, arg.is, dot any initiative dot do info goes to initiative equals info.arg. Right. So when we call add, populate our initiative object with that result of the add, capturing what it was at the point we hit add. There we go. So we have the ability to add an initiative. So I'm only slightly behind. From here, two things need to happen. I need to listen to that event and then publish an integration event. So now let's go to foundation. I'm not going to finish that today, but on stream, I'm not going to finish that. I will finish that today. Feature, introduce initiatives. Take care, Mojo. See you later. We'll go create the event. So foundation is right now, it's a separate repo. It has the models for the events and the integration events, the service events, those things that are shared between all the applications. So this is going to be the initiative. Initiative. Why does that look wrong now? Because it is wrong. Initiative. Integration event. This is going to be the string source. Who am I kidding? This is going to be consistent with that. And then we're going to have public period identifier, public string name, public date time. I could publish it with that. I could publish date only. Yeah, let's try that. And that's it. Public date time. Last updated. Did I publish? I do publish the date added as well. Date time offsets, that's why. Date added. These are offsets because they carry with them UTC. So all the date and times stored in the database are UTC with the date time offset. Now the time zone comes with it. So when it's translated on the other side, it can be properly stored. It just helps with the way things are published around the system. I don't do it there. I have done it on some. Right? Where did I do that one? Sprint integration event. Yeah. So I've got to look at this. We'll carry on that path. It's not harmful. It does work. It stores the right value. So I need to probably go back and change some of the other things. So with that in place, what would happen is we then create a subscriber to that event. So now when that data is stored in the database, the event gets published to the local piece. That picks that event up and then publishes the integration event to Kafka. What that means is we've saved the data in the database, right? That's the primary goal. Get the initiative stored in the database. Everything else can come if it doesn't work, if something else doesn't pick it up, we can deal with that later. And but we've captured the initiative. And only when that's saved to the database will the event be triggered, which will then trigger this integration event to fire. So if that rolls back, everything rolls back. And we got to test that quite extensively in the beginning. But yeah. So let's add introduce initiative event for foundation. That's so that we can share that in other places as well. So we could put metrics around that or whatever we want to do. Create and test for. So obviously I've got to do the counter test. I've got to do the test where I'm setting the date times, decide where the validation for start date and end date both having to exist. So I'm going to make the assumption that I'm going to put a validator around the outside of that command so that there is no need to suspect that the data being passed into the handler is incorrect in that respect. Passing for creating and test for passing in just name. Produce domain event. commit and push. So we're going to get this off my machine so that at least I don't have a bottleneck there. And yeah, we should be good. So not as much progress as I liked. Again, throwing out that 40-minute um, timeline was irresponsible. Um, Not really, but it's fine. Um, you know, he said he was going to go live. He didn't go live. Come on, man, what are you doing? Um, so, but we're not far away. So the other part is adding the endpoint, the API endpoint to call that, send that command, adding the validator to make sure that start date and end date are not set incorrectly. Um, the validator will go on the command. So anywhere we go and say add initiative, it doesn't matter where from, whether you should only call it from the API endpoint or whatever, is not really the purpose, right? The 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 validation will fire and prevent you from creating bad data. Um, then with the integration event, we can now consume it on the other side, so we can start setting up the UI. So coming into tomorrow, we'll be working on getting the UI configured to add an initiative, displaying the list of initiatives, and that's the goal for tomorrow. So progress. No more projects created. So that's a positive. Okay, but a certain person said he was going to go live, but he didn't go live, which leaves me with different options. I know. He was going to go live midstream. He didn't go live. Okay. But anyway, then he loses the opportunity for this. Um, it's Wednesday. It's Wednesday, which means a one line stream today. I would highly recommend checking out one line. If you are a .NET developer or you're interested in .NET development, one line stream is a great place to go and hang out. And he's working on his work projects of late. But it's just a great place to be. Um, and he streams for a lot longer as well these days because he's sharing the work stuff. Um, as always, you are very welcome, and I appreciate you for your assistance. Um, we'll get developers.stream worked on. So that is going to be me for today. I will be back tomorrow. I'm going to raid you into maybe he's currently away making coffee, but I need to get going. Oh, he's just back. So there we go. I just heard him. So thank you for joining me. Maybe is a React developer. He's titled "Coding Until Someone Hires Him," so he's looking for a job right this second. Zeroth, thank you very much for coming and hanging out. Appreciate it. Don't get to see you much in here these days. I don't know whether you lurk more or what, but thank you for hanging out. I'll see you all again soon. Take care. Ah, snow day. There you go. Yeah, see you tomorrow. Have a good day all. Bye.